Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm Bill Whittle. I just have to answer this text super quick because I gave my wife a call here. Just 1 second. Sorry about this. Sorry. Okay, here we are. I hope everybody's doing well. Oh, greetings from Brazil. Hello, Brazil. Greetings from Los Estados Unidos, or what it would be in Portuguese, which I'm sorry to say I don't know. But in any event, it's good to be here. Cracking out the old Hanna-Barbera greatest hits kind of thing. Turn down the volume on your shirt. Well, the problem is it's a USB shirt, and it just has a life of its own. So hope everybody's doing well. The the Giardia thing, that was kind of fun. I I got to tell you, there was kind of an experience that was just sort of it's kind of indicative of the new world. Let's see how to begin this. So somewhere around 5 weeks ago, something like that, I thought I came down with what I thought was food poisoning. I was out for probably 2 or 3 days. I was just really, really sick. Came on real fast. And then I was better for a week, and then it kind of came back for like another, day or two, and I thought, oh, maybe I just didn't get all of it or whatever. And then 3 weeks went by when I was just feeling just really just low energy. And then probably last Wednesday or Thursday, started feeling just sick again, just really, gassy and stomach problems and, just not good. So finally, volume up. Brian Regan said, I felt like everything that was on my inside wanted to be on my outside. And she was experiencing it too. So we're sitting there on the couch in misery on Friday night. It's about midnight or 12:15 or something. And just because I had nothing else to do, I cracked out the Chat GPT and I said, hey, I've got these symptoms and this and this, and ChatGPT said, that could be a couple of things. So what about this? What about this? I'd say yes to this and no to that. And within the space of, honestly, 3-4 minutes, ChatGPT said, these symptoms kind of sound like could be Giardia. And I thought, well, what the hell is that? So we refined it some more, and it's a parasite. It's a what is it? A protozoa, metazoa. So it's an amoeba-like parasite. Sounds like Lord Bio says Giardia is hard to get in the U.S., but I gave it the old college try, and anyway, the more I told her about the symptoms and Natasha catching it, because apparently it's fairly easy to pick up. I probably had it for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, maybe longer, and was really making me tired. I just thought it was just exhaustion or whatever. So anyway, here's where it gets cool. So I'm sitting on the couch, I'm talking to ChatGPT, and I'm trying to figure out what to do about it. So I said, look, 2 days previous to Friday night, Saturday morning, I woke up with it about 6 in the morning, and it hurt so bad I thought I was going to have to call an ambulance. I mean, it just hurt. It wasn't just like nausea, sick, it just hurt. So I said to ChatGPT, we've had 2 trips to the emergency room in the last year or two, and they've both been absolutely miserable and expensive. When Natasha broke her wrist, we were at the Encino emergency room for 7 hours. They gave us 1 pain pill, took 2 x-rays, and charged us only $5,000 for that experience. It's practically $1,000 an hour to sit there and wait for a doctor. Insurance paid $3,500 of it, but I was on the hook for $15,000, and they didn't do anything. So ChatGPT said, have you tried giving any thought to telemedicine? I said, I've done telemedicine before. Didn't occur to me. And next thing you know, it's like, would you like a list of all of the available telemedicine services that are online? I said, yeah. Can you just select the ones that are open 24/7? Like that. Oh, that's cool. What can I expect? And then ChatGPT says, well, you have to go in for the sample, which is undoubtedly a recreational experience, doing a stool sample. I'm sure that's a lot of fun. And then you go to that has to go to the lab. And so there's, 3 days for that. And I just thought, man. So ChatGPT said that there's a number of things to treat it, but it said tiniprimazole, something like that. Said it's just one dose, 2 grams, 4 500 milligram pills, one shot, and it works real fast. So I said, what do I tell the medicine doctor? He said, well, here's your symptoms, this is what you described, and ask if he can prescribe this. So at 1:10 in the morning, I'm on the phone and I'm talking to a doctor, and I'm telling him what my symptoms are, and I said, ChatGPT, and I've gone over this a lot. I said to ChatGPT, I don't want to offend the doctor. I'm sure a lot of those guys take that really personally. And they get all these people who self-diagnose themselves. That's a real problem for doctors, is patients that self-diagnose. But ChatGPT said, look, you probably just appreciate it. Just get it to the point. So I said, well, here's what the situation was. The doctor did due diligence, asked me a bunch of questions. He said. The doctor said, all right, I'm going to start you on a 5-day treatment thing. It's this medication. You take it once a day, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'd written this down. I said, what about tiniprazole or whatever that thing is, something similar to that? He said, yeah, we could do that. That's fine. It's a 1-dose thing. And it turned out that this experience cost me $55. I got the doctor write the prescription at 1:20 in the morning. It was delivered free to the home at 9:30 the next day. That was the deal. And then signed Natasha up, and she talked to the same doctor, got the same prescription, picked up the medication. Actually, they were supposed to deliver it for free, but they said they couldn't, so I had to go down to the pharmacy, pick it up. I came back to the house around noon on Saturday, and Natasha and I were just feeling awful by this point. But I'd been dealing with it on and off for 5 weeks. And so we both take our pills. We're both been just absolutely blown out, exhausted for a while. I think we've had this in our system for a while, personally. We both do. But so we take a nap on the couch, and we sleep for like 4 or 5 hours, some incredible long time like that. We're just so blasted. And then we woke up, and I said, how do you feel? She says, I feel better. And I said, me too. And Roadrunner says, I had to go to the pharmacy to pick up the medicine, first world problems. No, dude, it's absolutely, you couldn't be more right. This is the entire point of the story. This is like a first world problem in a 21st century deal. I said, you feel better? She said, yeah, I still feel kind of tired, but yeah, I said, I don't feel like my insides want to be on the outsides anymore. It produces a lot of gas, so you're just constantly belching and burping and all kinds of other things. So anyway, I woke up this morning and I came in and I picked up a phone call with some producers and editors I was working on, and I couldn't believe how much energy I had. It sounded like a new man, because I guess I am. So I don't get to say we anymore, but I did tell Natasha, I said, oh, that's strange. I just feel like a sharp pain in the back of my jaw here down my right arm, not my left arm. That's good. Right back here. Never had that experience before. It's almost like I got stung by something. A couple people are asking where I got it. I don't know. I think we order a fair amount of takeout food. I think it probably came from there. That's one possibility. We have a lot of outdoor wild animals. We have raccoons and possums, and we had a skunk come right up to the door last night. And I usually go out when I'm thirsty and drink out of their water bottle. It's not chest pain. It's not chest pain. It's just a kind of a sharp pain, like right here. And I don't eat seafood. I can't stand seafood. And so maybe it was my drinking out of the outdoor water dishes that did it, or the time I just washed my face with the runoffs from the latest rains. No, the truth, yes, it's not a stroke. Thank you, Road Rider. I appreciate it. It's not that. It's just a kind of a sharp pain back there, but feel good, and it's gone. Probably just a muscle spasm from all the whatever. But I woke up this morning and I turned my head and coughed. Anything else I can do for you on camera while you want to test for hernias? See, I'm fine. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Anyway, I just got a whole lot more energy back, and I'm just throwing it out there. If you've got if you live in a functional town, then by all means, and you go to the emergency room or whatever. But in Los Angeles, I'm going to be doing the telemedicine thing, unless I am bleeding profusely. Because I was thinking, now I got to find a gastroenterologist, and I got to set up that, and our first available appointment is February 3rd, and all that nonsense. So it was just pretty cool. By the way, the app and the website is drhouse.com, and there's a list of all these doctors, and I found one that was like 24/7. I took the 1:10 a.m. appointment and done. So I'm feeling much, much, much better. Much better. So there you go. Okay. I'm jumping to the questions pretty quick here, but I have been doing a little bit of thinking about things. I did not join the choir invisible. I did not depart this vale of tears. I did not. I'm not pining for the fjords. You guys remember those alien animations I showed you? The first round was kind of dark and kind of interesting and cool. Then the second round was these kind of Portuguese man of war kind of things. Well, those are off the menu, and the reason that those are off the menu is because I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but I sure did. Take a look at this, kids. Now, I have sent a cease and desist to James Cameron, but those are stills from Avatar 3. And in fact, there's a scene in there where one of them jumps on there and rips open the thing, so it's not like a minor deal. So that's okay, I'm gonna change them. Nobody was really completely happy with them anyway. Somebody made the suggestion that the one I did that was opaque was probably better, and I've been thinking about that the whole time. But in any event, I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board on this. And this brings up an interesting, don't worry, no one will see Avatar 3. Yeah. Well, no one will talk about Avatar 3. The Critical Drinker did a thing on the Avatar effect, and he's right. He said, it's the number one most popular movie of all time, Avatar 2, which I thought was not going to do well. Eric Blake said, no, it's making big money, and he was right. It became like the third or fourth biggest, grossing film of all time. But no one remembers anything that happened in Avatar 2, and no one talks about Avatar 2. Avatar 3 is opening in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe less, and there's no buzz. There's no I can't wait. There's nothing, and Drinker put his fingers on a bunch of it. He said, it's a really contrived plot. The visuals are stunning. There's no real story there. He mentioned Sam Worthington disparagingly, which made me happy because I've always felt he was just an absolute cardboard cutout. The two things that bear mentioning are, number one, when you saw the first Avatar, it was genuinely unbelievable. That That's why I've never gone back to see it again. Yeah, Dave Big Boutte says there's no there. I have no. I didn't see Avatar 2 again. I've probably seen Avatar maybe 2 times, maybe 3, but I don't think about it at all. And what's interesting about that is, come on, Drinker said it was because there's no real story there. I think that one of the good things, one of the main reasons why people don't talk about it, and that he didn't cover, is I think Avatar is a non-event as far as cultural penetration goes, because I don't think people like going to movies where they're portrayed as the bad guys. You know, Aliens is my favorite movie ever. It's not the best movie ever made, but it's my favorite movie. And Wrath of Khan is second. And both of those movies, I'm on the side that is the side that, the good guys. I'm rooting for the good guys. By the time you get to Avatar, I was rooting for the humans. I was really rooting for the humans. Certainly by Avatar 2, it's like, this Stephen what's his name character, a bad guy in the first movie who was so over the top. He was a bad. They brought him back for the second movie. They brought him back for the third movie. So you got the same villain coming back 3 times, which means he's immortal. He can't be killed apparently. So all of that tension is gone. There's no sense of victory or winning if the villain just keeps coming back. It's such bad filmmaking. It really makes me wonder if it's James Cameron at all. It's obviously, hundreds of people said this, thousands of people said it back when the first one came out. It's Dances with Wolves in space, where the white man has to come to the rescue of the noble savage because he's not capable of winning against the white man otherwise, and so on and so on and so on. But basically, Cameron is making us the bad guys, and I'm not down with that. Except the villain didn't die at the end of 2. That's right. The villain is coming back. It's the same villain for Avatar 3. Now, I've showed you this before, but there might be some folks who are relatively new who haven't seen it. So let me show you something about James Cameron here. This blew my mind. Perfect. So check this out. Some of you will know what I'm about to do, but some of you won't. Okay, check this out. This will get your attention. Come on, Billy, you can do it. All right, here we go. You probably remember this scene from the original Avatar. This is the briefing room where the evil humans are getting ready to put the plan on how to go massacre the innocent aliens. And you want to talk about a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. So everybody take a good long look at this still here. And if you have, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But just looking at this image, do you see the American flag? See where he's buried it? For those of you who haven't seen, like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But until it's pointed out to you, it'll really shock you. So if you don't see the American flag in this image, it's not because he's hiding it behind a table or anything. It's because the entire background is the American flag. The horizontal louvers are the stripes, and in the upper left-hand corner, the air conditioning unit is the section of the flag with the stars. So they're standing in back of the American flag. They're right in front of the American flag. And like Red Letter Media says, you may not have seen it, but your brain did. And yeah, here's a little FU to all of you patriots out there who are paying him billions of dollars with your stupid backwards love of country and all the rest of it. He all of the money he made, he's made a lot of money. He's earned his money. He's certainly earned it. There's no question about that. But when he wants to go down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench and builds his own submarine, which took tremendous guts. I mean, real courage. Um, he's doing it on American dollars, and I just find that kind of thing to be, you know, just kind of nasty. Um, so yeah, being last independent thinker says paying to be insulted in a humiliation ritual. Precisely correct. So one person, or maybe what might have been Drinker, somebody said, you know, the thing about Avatar, about the Avatar franchise is he's got three more coming after the one that comes in December. It's going to take him to the end of his life, and they speculated on how many movies, how many other movies did the Avatar franchise keep Cameron from making, which is an interesting point because I thought I thought that that the Terminator films were great. I thought the Aliens my favorite movie. I thought The Abyss was pretty good, um, and then boom, you know, he did it. And then he comes back and he goes down after the first Avatar, goes down to the Amazon. You know, he's all decked out in his adventure captain outfit, you know, with his safari jacket and his pith helmet. He's down there with these authentic Amazonian tribes who live off the land and don't have all of these pollutions like, you know, cotton underwear and things of that nature. And he goes down there and he apparently started talking to them in the language of the Na'vi, and he said, whatever, I see you. Oh, okay. How about some cash, crazy white man? And anyway, you know, that's that. So I'm gonna do another pass on what I want those things to look like. They're certainly going to be airborne. One thought I had actually was to kind of change things around a little bit and postulate that for these aliens, you know, if the planet rotates relatively slowly and its atmosphere is thick, that the winds might be more or less constant. And I kind of think it might be cool to have like a gas bag on the top, and then instead of tentacles from the bottom, which really suggests amoebas and jellyfish, and especially Portuguese man of war, which I grew up with in Bermuda. Those things were everywhere. By the way, if you've never seen a Portuguese man of war, now's your chance. Hang on a second. The reason I bring it up, and I'm sure it's the reason why Cameron used them, just ripped them off, is because in Bermuda these things washed up ashore all the time, and the fact of the matter is that the color on these things is absolutely just breathtaking. Here, take a look. Portuguese man of war is a colony creature, and it consists of like a gas bag, and then below it are these tentacles. Below it, so the gas bag floats on the surface of the ocean, and then these tentacles hang down, and they can hang down like 20 feet. And if you look at that ridge across the top there, that's actually evolved into a sail. What it really wants to do is it wants to go through the water as quickly as it can because the tentacles are grabbing food. It's a filter feeder, so it's evolved an actual sail on the top, and those blues and purples are just, you know, absolutely fantastic. So a blue bottle, I haven't heard that before, but they're beautiful. But man alive, I can't tell you how many times we would have guests at the hotel come in with just really horrific stings, you know, hospital stings. You get these things tangled up you and so on. You're in for real trouble. I've never been stung by one, but I've heard it's just really nasty. Anyway, so I'll change those aliens around. So the one thing about the colonies I wanted to talk about before we get into the questions is this, and that is, well, first of all, I've written, I think it's 6 scenes for that make up the beats for the Homesteader family on the pilot episode. Got the first scene where we meet Jake, and he has to vote for the incompetent bureaucrats in order to have enough social credit to buy roses for Lisa's birthday. And then the daughter goes to the nightclub, and then they're getting ready to leave and have a scene maybe with Lisa's mother who's got some money. And I was thinking about I want to end the pilot episode with them landing at Niflheim is the official name, but Sniffelheim is what they call it. That kind of ice planet that's heading out into its winter, and they check out their rover that they bought from Earth. And there's an agent there, registered agent there, and they find the rover, and the rover is just trashed. It's just trashed. And what are they going to do? They're going to sue the guy. The guy's not there. You just have to fix it. So that's the last scene I wanted in the pilot for that storyline. And I thought, well, you just cut to them getting there. But I thought it'd be nice to have a chance to show them leaving Earth. And I thought about space plane and all that other stuff. And then I thought, it's unusual to see space elevators. And so I'm going to have them leave Earth off of a space elevator. And I think that's going to be a really, really cool scene. I just lie there in this kind of half awake, half asleep state, and I just start seeing the scenes, and then I start thinking about the problems, and like how would this actually work? Which reminds me, I thought when these guys get to the space elevator, they're going to have to go through some kind of security, obviously. They're going to be bioscanned and facial recognition and all that. But on something this delicate, they got to be scanned. So what I thought it was, they would go to this place. It would look an awful lot like the Homeland Security thing, TSP. I mean TSP station, right? And maybe they step into one of these little booths, but instead of doing the scan or something, this device comes down and puts these four kind of high-tech looking fingers on your head. Just rest it there real gently. And there's like little sensors on the tips, and this computer voice says, "Do you have any plans to harm this any passengers or this facility?" And Lisa says nope, and the thing says clear, and then Claire says nope. He says clear. Will says negative. He says clear. Jake says if I could blow it up tomorrow, I would do it. The thing says clear. Sorry, Claire says nope, and instead of saying clear, it says, "Do you have any plans to harm the passengers of this facility?" She said no, and then the voice says, "Please look at the screen." Okay, this is different. So she looks over at this screen, and they start showing her just images, still images, right? Here's a tiny little kid with a teddy bear and this overlooming monster. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. This. Starts narrowing down possibilities. You end up with a face that looks a bit like the guy who she left, and then it says clear. I thought that was a nice little touch, where they're using like Neuralink to really determine if you're actually lying rather than just biological symptoms. What are you actually thinking about? And then they get on the space elevator, and I thought, well, what's that going to look like? It seems to me like you're gonna the reason she fails, by the way, is because she would like to blow the thing up. She doesn't want to go, and that's why they hold her, because she really doesn't want to go. Anyway, so the space elevator is usually portrayed as relatively small things, but I figure, if you're going to go to the trouble to build one of these things, it seems to me like you're going to want to move the mail, man. You're going to want to really move the mail on these things. And so I thought that the inside of the space elevator would look more or less like the inside of a 737, maybe with bigger windows and a little more legroom. And you'd be on the ground, and there would be like a pre-launch announcement. They'd be getting the last of the passengers in, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Blah blah blah. In the event of a loss of cabin pressure, and you'll see a full face mask come down. I don't know if any of you have ever seen these. It's a pretty it's not a common sight, but inside of every commercial jetliner and inside a lot of executive jets, there's a panel, and for the pilots, everybody knows what the passengers get, the little plastic things. But for the pilots, they get something that just fitted over your head like a crown, and the second you touch a button, these things contract and it pulls it right to your face. So you get full face, including your eyes. So if the cabin catches fire or whatever, you're good to go. So something like that for the passengers, and in the extremely unlikely event of loss of pressure, depending on our location on the elevator, you may feel some tingling in your skin. This is perfectly normal, nothing to worry about, and so on and so on. And so they're giving this kind of whole nice thing about what happens if they blow pressure on the way up. I got a lot I'm gonna do. Bill says here, Eric says, Bill, there's a very important question about Claire. What are you going to do to ensure, despite her flaws, that the audience doesn't hate her? No, I'm going to do a lot. I thought that she would have like this adversarial relationship with Will, and I realized that's kind of tropey. I'm going to have them be very, very close, and Will can cheer her up, and she really looks out for him and cares about him, and some other things. So, he makes her laugh. So anyway, I'm working all this stuff out, and then I'm thinking, so how would you run this thing? I mean, realistically, what's the problem? You've got, if you had something you put 100 people in or 200 people in, it takes a little longer to load, but every car's counting. You just got lines of people. It seems to me that the ride is going to be probably a 30-40 minute ride. It's an hour to space at 60 miles an hour, and this thing will start slower, but definitely go faster than that. So, figure half an hour. There's no sense in having assigned seating for half an hour. You would need a toilet on there, and you might serve soft drinks on the way up. But generally speaking, it's first come, first served. So Will goes roaring in there and gets a window seat. He and Dad sit next to each other. Claire and Mom sit next to each other. And then this thing just lifts. And it would start out pretty slowly. And there'll be by the way, I got to get this resolved. I really need to get this resolved. I already know the answer to this, but I just don't want to face it. It's a completely different subject. I'm fighting this as hard as I can, and I just don't want to do it. But I got to make a decision somewhere in here about the metric system. I just do, and I don't know if there's any way around it. No, although Blue Origin went with Imperial. So, in any event, there'll be a little stripe that'll be painted every mile or every kilometer. Yeah, once I go though, I got to go with it the whole way. And the problem is that if I go with the metric system, I've got to be able to have a line like, "Wow, it's 40 degrees outside. It's really warm." It just doesn't sound right to me. Just doesn't. It doesn't sound right. I want to stay Imperial. Yes, I do. Well, by God, I'm going to do it. It's my universe. It's our universe. There are two kinds of countries in the world: those that use the metric system and those that have been on the moon. Whatever. So, in any event, they start going up. They go think as a real gentle kind of a thing, and there's they just paint a marker on there every. Yeah, all right, good. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want. American exceptionalism sold. And they can have their kilometers and all the rest of it. We're staying with feet and miles. Love it. Yeah, thank you. I needed that. I really did, because I did not want to make that concession. So the thing just starts going up like a hot air balloon. Starts out really slow. And, one of the family members says, at this rate, we're going to be here all day. And as they get higher, it start going a little bit faster. And, Dad says, man, this is really slow. Will, I got to start sketching Will. And so Will says, yeah, we're slow because we're still in the mesosphere. We're still way down low. There's a lot of drag on something this big when you're going sideways. We'll go faster once the air gets thinner. Sure enough. And there's a little screen in the front, and the screen says, showing your altitude above the Earth. And then if he's like, you're now crossing from the mesosphere into the stratosphere. All the rest of this stuff, you get higher, higher, and higher. You get to black space pretty quickly. I thought, okay, so if you're going to build this beanstalk, which is the Traveler 2300 term for it, which I like, you want to move a lot of people, so these cars have to be bigger than just 5 people. It just doesn't make any sense. You want to be set up so that um, it can't just be one car, right? You want a stream of cars going up, which means that you have to have at least 2, and I'm going to do much more than that, but you have to have at least 2 rails, the upgoing rail and the downgoing rail. If you've only got one rail, you have to go all the way up, all the way down, up, down. It doesn't make any sense. So you got to have one system that's going up. You got to have a number of cars stacked on the upgoing rail, separated by 10, 15, 20 minutes, that kind of thing. And then same thing for the downgoing rail. And I was thinking, when the thing gets to the top, or to the bottom for that matter, maybe if the center of the beanstalk was here, you would have like a 5-petaled flower, and then another 5-petaled flower that was offset. The thing would get to the top and you dock, people would get off, and then the thing would just rotate around until it got to the downward cable, and then that car would go down. So you've got these things constantly in motion. And then I thought, what happens if that solves a problem, doesn't it? See, I was like, that solves a problem. It's so easy. I can't believe I didn't think of it. My problem was thinking, that the cables would be moving kind of like on a chairlift at a ski resort. But the problem with that is, if the cables are moving, then what happens if you have a problem? What happens if somebody falls down at the top or the bottom and the next car keeps coming up? You can't do that. You got to be able to stop each one of these cars individually. So put the motors on the car. That's what you do. You put the motors on the cars. Because I actually wanted a scene where a couple windows on the ceiling as well, and you're looking as you go up. And I wanted to have a scene where, in this scene, I wanted to have them where they they're almost to the top and they start slowing down, and you hear this voice, and the voice says, "Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the delay. We've got the car above us is just taking a little longer to unload, so we're going to just hold here for a few moments." It just sounds like a regular commercial flight. So the things go up, and then they move over, and then they go down, they move over and come up again, and you've got constantly this constant stream of stuff. I still have a hard time with the orbital physics of this, but these space elevators are tethered to either an asteroid or something incredibly massive, so that the elevator is constantly in tension. When you get to a certain height, you're not at geostationary. I was trying to remember how that works. I got to do some more research into the. Do you have to go to? Would you have to take a space elevator to geostationary orbit for that to be 0G at the top? It seems like you would, wouldn't you? So, let's say you take the space elevator to the top of the space elevator. You get off on a platform, and you're weightless. You just float away. So it has to go. So that has to go to geostationary orbit, doesn't it? It's like 23,000 miles. It's going to be a much longer trip than I thought. I'm glad I worked this out with you guys. Much longer trip. 22,300 miles. It's 371 miles an hour to get there in an hour, right? Does that make sense? 371 miles an hour times, sorry, no, that's not right. What is that number? Somebody can do the math for me. How fast would you have to go to get to geostationary orbit in, just out of curiosity's sake? In 1 hour, that's screaming fast. It's a 4 or 5 hour trip, isn't it? It's got to be a 4 or 5 hour trip. That's good. That makes sense. In any event, that's especially cool because Geez, Dave Big Booty says 1,000 miles an hour would take almost all day. It's a multi-day trip. Isn't that something? Roadrunner says, according to Wikipedia, it has to be longer than geostationary. It has to be 35,000 kilometers. I'm talking about miles. Darth Chuck the Merciless says you could put stations wherever you want. At 400 miles, hop on a shuttle to accelerate sideways to get to a LEO station. Yeah, but now 2 to 3 days. It's a 2 to 3 day trip to for a 6-hour trip. It would have to be rise at. Thank you very much. Caslin says for a 6-hour trip, it would have to rise at 3,750 miles per hour. I really like that because there's no reason why you can't go that fast. Once you get out of the atmosphere, you just keep accelerating. Yeah, I think that's cool. Yeah, you're doing nearly 4,000 miles an hour. The mile markers are going boom, 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 going upward in a bus like that. How much further out depends on the mass of the counterweight. Yeah, I don't see any reason to do a space elevator unless you can get to the top and just dock everything there, right? I'll do a little more research, but in any event, yeah. So Mach 5, yeah, that's not terrible. But if the acceleration if you're getting 1g acceleration on the straight up, the problem is if you're sitting horizontally, it's pushing you down into the chair rather than back. Something interesting. Roadrunner says, so the counterweight has to be huge. Yeah, it has to be an asteroid. It has to be a captured asteroid. I didn't know what that is. Last Independent Thinker says a space tower is more practical. The question is, where's the most politically stable place on the equator to base a space elevator? It's funny you mentioned that. I'm going to be thinking about that. And I think there's more than one. I think there's China's got one, and Western Hemisphere has got one, and at least two. And that space elevator, if that goes out to geostationary orbit, what kind of a hazard to navigation does that play for like low Earth orbit? I guess you just stay the hell out of the way of the space elevator. I guess that's just that simple, right? You just don't fly into buildings and you stay out of the way of the space elevator. But it's an interesting problem. No, it's cool. All right. I actually like the idea that it takes that it takes longer. Yeah, John Condon said, most stable politically, how about the ocean? I was actually thinking about someplace like Kwajalein or something. I don't know how close those archipelagos are to the equator. I don't want to interrupt the stream, but if anybody can check on it, all of those territories and holdings. No, I've not read Pillar to the Sky. I guess I probably should. Because it's got to be right on the equator. It has to be like on the equator. Well, this is fun. We'll work it out. Anyway, so they take the space elevator up, and I got a bunch of cool scenes there. You don't have to be right on the equator. Air Techie says probably have to be within 2 or 3 degrees of it, though. I'll bet you. Okay. And so that'll be a really cool visual. And up at the top, you have this gigantic platform at the top, right? A huge platform, miles and miles across. Pillar to the Sky. I will hang on a second. I'll open a new browser so I don't forget it. William R. Fortune. Anyway, it'll be something you don't get to see every day, and we'll get all the physics worked out, and that'll be cool. So yeah, so then it basically feels like a relatively long duration airplane ride. It's a 6-hour flight or a 7-hour flight. Probably could do it in the time it takes to go from LA to New York. because once you get clear of the atmosphere, and that's very fast, that's the first, realistically, honestly, the first 10 miles you're pretty much out of the atmosphere. Um, and uh, and so you just go faster and faster and faster, and then you start decelerating. Decelerating means that you get an upward. So if the thing was horizontal and it's going up like this, right? This is like a 737 fuselage, and it's going straight up. So you get on the acceleration, you get g-forces going down like that. Decelerating, the g-forces would make you want to come up out of your seat. So this thing's going to have to rotate, isn't it? Once you get out of the atmosphere, when it's time to decelerate, you're weightless anyway. It doesn't care. You just rotate this thing 180 degrees along the roll axis, and then as you decelerate, it pushes people down into the chairs or couches, probably couches. All right, start to make. See, this is fun. This is fun. That's how we do it. They have like reclining couches. They go accelerate slowly. Once they get out of the atmosphere, they put the pedal to the metal. This thing starts really cranking, 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 cranking. Then you hit this point where you're either at maximum velocity, and probably no sense in going much faster than that. You coast, for 4 or 5 hours, and then you rotate the whole thing upside down. So now up is the Earth, and you're leaving the Earth, and you throw some brakes on there, and that would be we can figure it out. But so you would assume, yeah, it's like a 1G up to whatever speed you need, 5,000 miles an hour, let's say, 1G up, and then Roadrunner says use magnetic induction to move the capsules. They can then recapture the energy as they decelerate. Yes, and on the way down, they can generate energy, right? Because that'd be the same as kind of like a tidal energy system. On the way down, this thing is just falling. You put resistance on the fall, and you're generating electricity from. Yeah, cool, sold. I haven't seen Ad Astra. Not many people did, but apparently I've seen a bit of a clip where he falls off of the thing. So. Yeah, Nerdville, man. And then, cool, that'll work. Trinity Waters says nothing is static. Compensating accelerations would be needed. Yep, all of that. Take care, Castellan. Good talking to you. And then when you get to the top, there's this gigantic terminal, and all of these at Earth. I mean, there's just 20 or 30 of these ships just constantly docking and undocking, and this is the part I really want to talk about. So I've been doing all this work so far with AI. As I mentioned before, it's possible that in a year or maybe a year and a half, we might be able to do all of this in AI. But right now, the plan is to do all of the human faces and virtually all of the landscapes. Everything except for hard surface model in AI, and composite in CGI for things like the space elevator and the spaceships, and that would be Blender, because having spent my whole career in 3D Studio, and when I started, Blender was just a joke, and now Blender's just, since it's open source, man, open source is the way to go. And so I was saying to myself, putting together the pieces for this this first crowdfunding thing to get the pilot episode done. I'm thinking I really need a good Blender guy, and I just want to make it clear this is just my thought processes. It did not do anything along these lines, but I was just thinking I got to get a guy who really knows Blender really well. And I've been following a guy whose channel name is Tech Nouveau, and he's a fantastic Blender animator, and he puts out these like kits that I would have killed for, because they're already textured, and all of it's just like 700 greebles, and there's like 300 different cockpit displays, including 6 completely built cockpits, and it's just an incredibly cool pack, and I'm definitely going to buy it. But everything that he does and all of his exteriors are Star Wars based, and they look great. They look better than the show. But I was thinking about talking to this guy. I'm not saying I can sell him or even reach him, but I was thinking if I was going to talk to somebody like this, what I think I would do, and this is the part I wanted to talk about, is I think what I would do is something like, hey, look, I understand, you love the Star Wars. I love Star Trek. And Star Trek has its own ship design aesthetic, obviously. I could show you a vessel that had a circular main section and a couple of nacelles, and you would say that is a Starfleet ship. I could show you a ship that's all, oily and covered with greebles and got massive thrusters in the back, and that's a Star Wars ship. And the thought that occurred to me was we need to have our own design ethic that looks as different from both of those as they do from each other. There has to be a colonies look. I do want realistic ship design, so there's got to be a colonies look, and the colonies look will be very realistic looking in terms of these like space vehicles that don't do anything other. Yeah, it will be a Zoom call. Air Techie, don't you worry about that. We'll set this up. But basically, anything that's a orbit to orbit vessel is just plain fuel tanks. I think the idea of standard cargo containers like a container ship is absolutely essential. That essentially everything that moves as cargo moves in these centralized containers. I think virtually all the ships, I didn't think this originally, but the more I think about it, the better I like it. All of the ships are going to have, with some very important exceptions, which will be our colonies secret weapon kind of thing, we'll have to have some sort of centrifugal gravity. By the way, mentioned this before too, I had to talk to some actual rocket scientists about this, where I was talking about having a stabilized main body and a single rotating centrifuge or hab, but the main body would stay stationary. They had that on Babylon 5, the Earth ships on Babylon 5. And that is not possible. It is, you have to if you're going to have something rotating and it's not the entire ship, if you want the center of the ship to be stationary and you want a spinning centrifuge, you have to have something that counter rotates. And I thought, is that right? And they said, oh yeah, think about it. I said, what? I said, well, you could have the one thing rotating if you had a frictionless bearing. I said, yeah. So there are no frictionless bearings. I said, I know that. So every time this thing rotates, whatever friction there is going to want to pull the center of the body along with it. You could have a very, very low friction bearing, but first of all, those are not really practical. Secondly, you're going to constantly be pulling it anyway, because whatever friction there is going to induce roll into that central structure. And then I thought, well, you could use retro rockets. I said, what? Why? That's just nuts. That's dumb. What do you get for that? No, it's either the whole thing spins like on the Aurora, or something has to counterspin. Now, it doesn't have to be a centrifuge of the same size. In fact, it doesn't even have to be a centrifuge at all. You could have a spinning centrifuge, and if you had counter-rotating pods, the longer those pods are out there, the more moment there is on the arm, and so they don't have to be as big. But something's turning one way, something has to turn the other way. Otherwise, no. Or spin the whole thing. There's no magnetic attachment. There are low friction bearings, but there are no friction bearings, and that is going to spin the whole ship, which I like, and I think it's kind of cool. Gentleman 1105 says, as far as the ship interiors go, please have carpeted floors. I can't stand the hard floors Star Trek has been using since the 2009 movie. Not only are there going to be carpeted floors in this universe, hold on now. Everybody seated, everybody got their hands on the wheel here. There's going to be artwork. As when we lived in caves, we had art on the wall, and I have never seen art on the wall in any science fiction franchise ever. The tech is the art. It's like, no, man, they're gonna be decorated. They're gonna be decorated. They're gonna have art. They're gonna have music. They're gonna have carpets. They're gonna have drapes. It's gonna be going to look like it's real. So the ethic I'm going for is that these ships have, some of these ships are well over 100 years old because they work and there's no real wear and tear on them. They're not taking weather damage or weather erosion. It's not like I have scores and scores of moving parts. So some of these ships are going to be old and beat up and stained, and other ones are going to look relatively new, but it's going to be its own aesthetic. The Star Trek ships are sleek and elegant, and the Star Wars ships are rusty and bumpy and beat up. And this is going to live in a world between those two things. And which brings me to the one thing that I realized more than anything is going to help make this colony's hard surface stuff look completely unique. And it's going to take a lot of world building lore, which I will farm out to the hive mind. But the first thing that occurred to me is just about everything out there is going to have advertising on it. Not necessarily advertising for something else, but when you see a FedEx truck, you know who that truck belongs to. And same for Amazon. And same for the containers. And all of that stuff. So it's got to have lots and lots of logos. Which means that we got to do, I'm talking about the exteriors of the ships. Yeah, Maersk's Space Freight, exactly. They're not carrying, the starships are not carrying billboards. I'm just going back to the real world whenever I can. Cargo ships don't have pictures of Coca-Cola on the side of them, and neither do passenger liners. But they do say Carnival Cruise on it, or they do say Maersk or whatever, Evergreen. And the cargo modules themselves, these standardized containers, have to be very diverse. It has to look like there's 35, 40 companies out there. So we're going to have to do the backstory on 30 or 40 different corporations, and they don't all have to be cargo or whatever. But like a passenger liner, for example. In science fiction, you have your generic shuttle. We don't have generic airplanes in the world. We have United Airlines, and we have Swiss Air, and we have Emirates, and we have British Air, and we've got all that other stuff. So we have to do the liveries for that. We've got to do all of the logos, color schemes, and they should be recognizable. I think also a lot of this should be obviously, what's the word I'm looking for? Modular. So if you got a cargo ship, maybe you need one centrifuge or a partial centrifuge. If you got a really big cargo ship, maybe you need 3 or 4 of them, and they just stack them. They just build them. So you have 20 different parts, and you assemble them in different ways, and you will eventually find configurations that work well for the mission, and they will look a bit like that. Valley Forge and Silent Running was owned by American Airlines Spaceways. I don't remember that, Dave Big Booty, but I remember it was something. Nobody forgets the Pan Am Space Clipper. And that'd be fun. I was talking with a friend many years ago about this, and he came up with a company called Transvalt, which means Transworld. And I came up with a company called N-Star Energy Systems, and we could just do this all day. But I might still go after this guy and say, hey, look, I know you love your Star Wars, and I love my Star Trek, and seeing renders of the Enterprise and stuff, I just love them. But this is a chance to design a franchise from the ground up and do something that no one has seen before. Rutan Space Freighters, exactly. And I'm good with logos, and I don't have to do all of this, obviously, but I just like them. I like coming up with logos. I just think it's fun. It's not N-Star. It's ENSTAR. So we got to do drinks and stuff, all this stuff. And now in Star Citizen, They've done it, but they do it kind of, bit kind of goofy, wasn't it? Big Benny's or something is like a ramen thing they've got, and you know, Duff beer or whatever else they have. But you get the idea. But it'd be fun, and it's also fun for the world building thing to build back the story of the history of the mega corporation. Maybe we'll make one of them SpaceX and we'll get old Elon to chip in a couple bucks. But anyway, I think if you saw spaceships that had liner markings, and by the way, this is another thing, I think they're all painted. And if it's not painted, then you know you're dealing with a real low-end company, because obviously paint has mass, and if you paint it, then it's got to, Now Darth Chuck the Merciless says, of course they're painted, but the other ones that are like the Star Wars ships don't look painted. Most of them look like bare metal, and all of the things like the whatever oil or rust has to flow towards the back, not down, and all the rest of this stuff. Gotham Coach says, Bill, did you see China's new electromagnetic energy blaster missile today? Scary technology. I'll believe it when I see it in the field, but I did not. So, I'll take a look at it and see. So then they've got these different ship types. So that's the big, cargo haulers or liners that are moving people at either various stations inside various locations inside a solar system or through the Stargate lines to another system. And then once they get to their destination, then you got to get them to the ground. I was thinking of calling those GTO ships, ground to orbit. And I like the idea of the four rotatable main engines that point backwards, and then you come in for the landing, and these things rotate forward, you just vertically land them. It's 200 years in the future, 250 years in the future. I'm going to give them a lot of engineering advancements in terms of, thrust and specific impulse and how much fuel you don't have to carry and all the other stuff. Yeah, the GTO ships might have a bumpy ride home, exactly. And then in space, it's that. The Space Navy storyline I've got pretty much sketched out, where this American patrol ship, or has recently become a North American Central Administrative District ship, is basically just patrolling an asteroid in the like in one of the Trojan points around Jupiter or something, and they're picking up all of these little blips around this pretty big asteroid, and it turns out that they're Chinese mining illegally, the way they fish illegally around the world. China just goes fishing in everybody's territorial waters and dares them to do anything about it. So, screw you, China. And this is going to be like an American-owned belt, or an American company is going to own this asteroid, and these guys are going to, approach and try and scare them off and see if they can get some drive signatures or something to fine them or whatever. Mostly just drive them off, and all of a sudden, from behind this asteroid comes this thing and just opens up on this American ship with this Fargan laser, and starts this shooting war. And we get our butt handed to us. I think I'm going to do the thing from Taffy 3, where the guy who really initiated the whole, last stand of the Tin Can Sailors was Ernest Evans. And Ernest Evans was a junior officer in I think it was the Battle of the Java Sea, where right in the beginning, week or two of the war, this ABCD, wasn't it? American, British, Commonwealth, meaning Australia, and Dutch fleet got wiped out by the Japanese, and Evans was a junior officer, and they're running, just a handful of Allied ships got away, and Ernest Evans is standing there on the fantail of this cruiser he was on or whatever, and he says, so help me God, I am not running from the Japanese again, never. I am never running from them again. So he didn't. I just think that's a cool launching place for our naval story. Yes, this guy's going to be our John Paul Jones, and he's going to be our Ernest Evans. He's going to be a strategic genius, and we've got a company called Regan Dynamics, which is putting out an entirely new design because they are using advanced magnetics to simulate gravity, so they don't have to have the spin design. And the reason you don't want that, the reason you want a relatively streamlined ship, is you don't have to refuel that. You can do frontier refueling. You can just do a series of looping orbits and dip into the atmosphere of gas giants and tank up for free and without having to have facilities. That's a useful thing for a warship to be able to do. That essentially makes them, like a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Doesn't have a range, and it doesn't have to. It has to refuel, but it doesn't have to go back to its base. So, anyway, that's the basics. So I'm looking forward to starting working on the thing. Effin Geek says stealth in space would be extraordinarily difficult. It is practically impossible. However, I did a deep dive on this, and you can achieve it under a couple of conditions. It's not a radar thing. It's a heat signature. The space is 4 or 5 degrees Kelvin, and anything warmer than that, just much warmer than that, just lights up. It's just an infrared signature. But if you put a screen in front of this thing, if you floated a screen in front of it, and you had a very narrow exhaust plume that you constantly kept pointed away from your target, and you cool the inner hull with liquid hydrogen and the outer hull with liquid helium, you can get it down to about 6 or 7 degrees, and you're building up a heat debt, which you'll have to essentially discharge, but they're just going to store coolant on this thing. Water would probably be about as good as it could be. It's going to heat the water and just eat the heat signature until combat is joined, and then you go. And still, you'd be detectable, but the one thing that nobody talks about in terms of detection is, yes, it's true, you could see a ship from across the solar system without any trouble whatsoever because of how much hotter it is, but what people aren't accounting for is the presence of things like asteroids. If you remain inside the ecliptic, if you remain inside the orbital plane of the planets, no matter what solar system you're in, yes, you are a heat source, but you've got millions of heat sources. Surface of an asteroid is somewhat warmer than the surface of than space itself, right? You would think so. And so all you have to do is be able to blend in there. And you could probably, if you played it really carefully, you could probably pull it away, pull it off. Oh, that's really cool. What a cool thing! I just got sent a link to. A plane drops a smoke curtain in front of Navy warships. It's a biplane dropping a smoke screen for these warships. It's just like an actual curtain coming down. It's really cool. Hang on, I'll put the link in the chats here. That is really neat. So anyway, this is all stuff to get on Zoom calls with and do all this other stuff. But so my position on stealth is, yes, it's essentially useless except under extremely limited circumstances. But if you set it up correctly as an ambush, you probably could pull it off. If you could set up a ship so that it was in about the same orbit as the general asteroids in that area, and you cool it down, and then other ships and enemy ships arrive in system, you probably could hide from them, and you probably could maneuver without them detecting you if there were millions of things to track until you got close enough for your ship-killing weapon to work, and then you could get off one shot and hope for the best. After that, it's just run for your life. So anyway, all right, so that's that. But it's fun to talk about. I'm looking forward to getting back into that. I don't really know Blender very well. I know 3D Studio very well, but it'd be fun to see some CG stuff. So, really like to find somebody, and I can go to Artlist or DeviantArt or something, and find some because we'll be able to pay them. So that's always a nice thing. All right, let's see what we got here. Suddenly got warm in here, man. Let me just turn the AC down just a little bit. Hang on a second. Okay. I think, just before we get to the first question, just to wrap up what we've been talking about, I think if you had a science fiction show that paid attention to the kind of details that we've just been talking about for the last hour or so, I think you'd have an audience. And by the way, everybody talks about The Expanse as, it was so accurate, it was this thing. I don't like The Expanse. Everybody says the books are great. I did not like the show. I didn't like the whole kind of, space is a giant refugee camp. But whether you like the show or not, that show is so dark. Did they ever fully light any of those ships? Oh, they're taking place in the outer solar system. Okay, but really, you never got a really good look at it. Everything was so dark in that show. I just thought it was, I don't know. I don't like it. All right, I haven't seen Marusha, but thanks for curating these things. We got a Roadrunner, we got a Marusha, we got a Capital G Geek, Road Rider, Jacob Belchek, Eric Oshiro, Marusha again, Braden Higby, Eric Oshiro, and Eric Blake. Well, we're not going to get all of those. We'll do no duplicates, so see how we do with that. Let's start with Roadrunner. Greetings, friend Bill. Since you're a big fan of Mike Jitloff, have you ever seen any of the works of Ernie Foselius? No, I have not. He did some fantastic low-budget parodies of late 1970s movies. Hardware Wars, I remember Hardware Wars. Closet Cases of the Nerd Kind and Pork Lips Now were all hilarious. How do you not click on Pork Lips Now? Okay, that's definitely the 70s. I highly recommend watching if you haven't seen him, but I'm sure you have now. I never heard of him before. Finally, I think the Babylon Bee may have scooped you on truth bombs. Latest Tucker guest, Bigfoot reveals how mind-controlling chemtrails are sprayed over the flat Earth by the Jews. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, it's just sad, man. Lazul 6611 sounds like the colony's a big refugee camp, Bill. I thought the first few seasons of The Expanse was excellent. Well, no, it's not a refugee camp. They may look a little worn, and maybe more worn than I wanted them to. I did think they looked a little hobo-ish, but they're actually free citizens, and they're the masters of their own fate. They're not huddled masses, in a middle of series or whatever they put them. I really liked. I don't remember the name of the actor who played the detective on the first couple seasons of The Expanse, but I don't know. I thought the captain was kind of just, with Beltersman. Okay. I just didn't get the aesthetic. Hey, Speaker Steve. Hey, everybody. How's it going? All right, moving on. Thank you very much for that. Marusha Dark. Let's see which one of these two it looks. I'm going to take the first one and we'll save the second one. I'll probably just read the second one later. It looks interesting, but it's very long. Marusha Dark, topic, artificial souls. If you're not doing doubles, skip this one. Okay, fair enough. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Nick Freitas and Doug Wilson did a video on what the right wants. They agree that there are three groups on the right. The first wants to reset back to before Obama and woke about 1990s. The second wants to undo some larger things that were done by FDR and Lincoln to return to a more federalist system. The third thinks that there were things in the Enlightenment that need to be revisited. Since science fiction is always political, what are your solutions for how far they can avoid similar issues to what we have? Or is perpetual retreat to the next frontier going to be the answer? Edit after Stratosphere Lounge 1120. I'd suggest having voting rights restricted, perhaps one vote per family. It's interesting. Children would be a prerequisite because it gives a more future-oriented perspective. Also interesting. Also, maybe limiting corporate voting stock to individuals who actually own the stock and not investment funds that are acting on behalf of other people. And here's the Freitas Wilson video link. So thanks for that, Capital G Geek, and love your thumbnail. It's awesome. So one of the things that's nice about the colonies, I have hardly talked about this at all. Thomas Jane, yes, Thomas Jane was great. If you haven't seen 1922, he's phenomenal in that. It's a Stephen King short story turned into a movie. It's a horror psychothriller, but Thomas Jane is freaking phenomenal in that. One nice thing about this is, well, the short answer is I would just pretty much go back to the Constitution before the progressive era really messed it up. But one of the nice things is that, you know, we don't have to do it all exactly the same. For instance, you have, I don't know how many planets will actually be in the colonies. 13 is just too on the nose. But each planet can have considerably more autonomy in its local government than the actual colonies, which were abetting each other. And one of the great things about this kind of science fiction is the fact that you don't have to do just one. In other words, one world can have a more federalist system, another world could be more libertarian, you know, one could be more authoritarian, and you can play with it. But one of the things that we haven't talked about at all really is the reason I have the merchant, I don't know what, I just don't like that word, cargo. I should just get used to saying cargo. Merchant comes back to me from Traveler and from a lot of science fiction tropes, and cargo carriers is probably a better way to look at it. Anyway, one advantage to having a storyline that just goes all the way around the entire explored universe through these Stargate lines is you get to go and see a bunch of other places that you wouldn't get to see on the exploration story, which is exploring a new system, or the Homesteader story, which is based on one thing, or the Founders, which is at least starting on Earth, or the Navy thing. These guys get to go everywhere. And over the course of time, you can really start to flesh things out. It would be fun if you never see anything from the Chinese arm, which would be a pathway, you know, the way the real stars are laid out around around our sun. What you find is there's like 2 or 3 directions you can step off. You can step off towards Barnard Star, you can step off towards Alpha Centauri, you go a little further in this other direction, and these things tend to branch and form arms. And I really like that because, and this comes from Traveler 2300 as well. So there's the French arm, the Chinese arm, the American arm, you know, that kind of thing. And it would be really cool to have this kind of, you know, primary adversary out there and not see how they live until, you know, season 2 or 3 or something like that. You don't really get to see a Chinese colony until, you know, season 2. And you do that on a merchant ship. And it could be, not inclined to be generous to the Chinese, at least not the Chinese government. So we could make that a real dystopian kind of hellhole, you know, just like, my God, this is the future that that Alien and Blade Runner came up with, that Ridley Scott designed. The idea that everything is made out of metal, and everything's dark and there's steam and humidity. That whole like Star Citizen is, to their credit, Star Citizen does do, like, even in the Stanton system, there's was it Hurston, which is really kind of primitive, and then ArcCorp, which is a little more advanced, and then Crusader, which is even more advanced. But in any event, there's that. And then, for example, there are like subarms, which is also from 2300. There's like a little, like a spur, 3 systems on a spur along the Chinese arm. So there could be a caliphate arm. Be interesting to see what that happened, what that would look like. There was a joke. I remember it so well. It was in the days and months after 9/11, and the joke was some science fiction, some jihadi, saying, "Hey, how come there are no Muslims in space?" And the answer is because it's the future. Uh, um, so, yeah, Air Techie says Turkey and Nigeria. Yeah, I think the future Earth politics is really, really important. And I think what will happen is that the overall look will be mercantilism, where very powerful state and a few extraordinarily centralized corporations are in this symbiotic relationship where the money from the corporations supports the state, and the state regulates in favor to protect the corporations. And I think everything kind of gets to be bigger. So instead of Canada, Mexico, and the United States, you have the North American Central Administrative District. And for Europe, you have the EE, the Entente Européenne, and the Greater Chinese Co-Prosperity Sphere, and you get the idea. Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka says, how does the 7th century culture build spaceships? Same way they build skyscrapers. They buy them from people. And there you go. So, yes. Back to, was that a question thing? So yes, you get to do all these things. And by the way, there's another little idea. Like somewhere in here, probably during the founder's speech on the pilot episode, somebody's going to make an offhanded remark about how many ships in the history of exploration, which would be 250 years by that point, how many ships have just gone missing? I'm trying to think what a realistic number would be. I'm going to say at least hundreds. Just disappeared, right? And almost all of them will have been accidents. But yes, Air Techie, lost colonies. The hibernation technology is going to be pretty simple. It's just going to be medically induced coma. And when they open up a new system, and there's enormous interstellar thing, which is just huge. It's just, I can't even say how big it is. Just giant, enormous event. But you could just fire up the drives on something, and if you wanted to, get her up to 50% of the speed of light, yes. So you have these ideas that you could get lost colonies, where you could find all manners of horrors, including the genetic modification things that I showed before. Some of those things, and that's just cool. Yes, Darth Chuck Lemersa says, or they just go dark, establish the kind of colony, then lose tech civilization and either adapt or die, or adapt to low tech survival, or like these, because we're not. I'm just gonna say this right now. Of all the tropes that we are not going to fall into, the most obvious one is we are not going to have adversaries that are aliens. Period. There's a good chance that we're the only intelligent life in the entire universe, I think. But even if you don't buy that argument, there's very few of them, and much more to the point, the idea that we would be on more or less the same tech level, the same way that the Klingons and the Federation and the Romulans are all on the exact same tech level, is zero. The chance of that is zero. So we're going to be fighting other humans, or we're going to be fighting humans who have genetically modified themselves, but you can still tell that they're humans. There will be aliens, and there will be a couple of other alien intelligences, but no other technological aliens. Ever. That's going down as a unbreakable rule. General Ben says, Bill, I think you'd absolutely love the BattleTech universe. I don't know what BattleTech is unless it's it's not the MechWarrior universe, I guess, huh? I'll check it. We're just not going there. And I include the engineers from Prometheus in this category. I consider the engineers and the Earthlings to be on the same technological level. I just find the chance to be about zero. This is an interesting question. Looks like Junior Gall 5666. Bill, please promote the idea that the Russian population are more respectful, intelligent people, and politics aside, we're not that different, and we really should be allies. Well, Mr. Gold, I couldn't agree with you more. If I could find a nice Russian girl, I'd marry her. Wait, I actually did. My wife is Russian, and we've been married for 9 years now. And one of the things that got the relationship rolling was that I knew an awful lot about Russian history when I met her. And 10 minutes into our first conversation, I guess, she said, "You know more about Russia than I do, I think." And I've learned so much from her, and seen a lot of America through a different perspective, which is good for me. She never stops commenting on how friendly Americans are, but she's also got some things to say about our healthcare system relative to Russia, and really opened up my eyes to a bunch of things. You know, I mentioned earlier tonight that we've since we've been married, we've gone to the emergency rooms here in Los Angeles twice, and the last one we went to was when she broke her wrist, and we sat there for 7 hours, pushing 8 hours. We got one pain pill and one X-ray, and they charged us $5,000 for it. Our insurance covered $3,500 of it, but you know, it's nothing like paying $800 an hour to sit in an emergency room for 7 hours waiting for a doctor to come see you. So Natasha tells me about how in Russia you go into a clinic and you get treated right away, and how people are own apartments that are given to them by the state, and that they I don't know what they have to pay on it, but it's essentially nothing. I'm not saying I'm turning socialist, but I am saying the United States has evolved into these are they own these apartments, Darth Chuck. Their name is on it. We have evolved into, in some cases, the worst of all worlds, and our healthcare system is that, you know, it's got all of the dead weight and red tape of a socialist system, and all of the horrific costs and market-driven things that drive the quality of healthcare down as well. For example, this whole thing, watched it happen in my lifetime. What has happened in my lifetime is we went from having doctors in hospitals, and then all of a sudden along come these injury attorneys, malpractice attorneys, and now doctors. When I say now, I mean back in the 70s and into the 80s, you started seeing where doctors had to have $200,000 worth of malpractice insurance before they could hang out their shingle. And it's gotten worse and worse every year, and got much worse with Obamacare. So if you want to be a private corporation doctor now, like they used to be, you know, doctor would be a corporation, and you'd write a check to the doctor, and you'd go in for a visit, and it cost $70 and so on. Now, you go to the doctor. I'll just go through this little routine because it's important to say just out loud again. It used to be you'd go to a doctor in this country, and you hurt your ankle, and you would sit on the patient table in a doctor's office, and the doctor would take off the bandages or whatever, and he'd manipulate your foot, rotate your foot a little bit. Ow, ooh, like this. And he would say, you've got a sprained ankle. Keep compression on it. Get on some crutches. You'll start to feel better in this. Soak it in hot, Epsom salt, whatever, right? That'll be $50. Now, when you go into a doctor, you sit on the table. He manipulates your ankle. He does all this. He says, you've got a sprained ankle, but I'm going to send you in for an MRI to confirm it. Because if he doesn't send you in for an MRI and it turns out that you do something to damage your ankle, he could be looking at being sued for $5 million by some piece of crap who wasn't me, but somebody could have been just any one of his patients. So what used to cost $50 now costs $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, that kind of thing. So it's just a mess. And more doctors are giving up being doctors, independent doctors, and they're just becoming employees of whatever giant HMO is in the area. Now they're employees. They check in at 8 in the morning. They check out at 6. If you come in at 6:06, or you've been there since 4, and it's time for him to go home, he's going home. He has no choice. And the doctors that stay in business, try to stay in business as independents. If I pay $100 in health care, $30 goes to the federal government in taxes and so on. $30 of that goes to the insurance companies. He gets $30, and so he has to see 3 times as many patients to maintain his standard of living. It's a freaking mess, man. It's an absolute mess. And then you've got these guys who are basically saying, we got to cut costs, so we're going to cut this option, or you're insured for this. And it turns out, well, it happened on a Thursday, and your health insurance doesn't cover being hit by a bus on Thursdays. And there you go. Roadrunner says, I've heard that 90% of malpractice cases, no matter how spurious, are settled out of court by hospitals rather than being fought in courts. Yes, because we didn't fight them when we could, now it is the smart play. And I had a good friend of mine who became a millionaire, started his own business. He's my surrogate dad, and he got a bogus, really bogus, like a sexual misconduct kind of a suit, and he was determined to fight it. And his attorney said, Jerry, we can either write this person a check for $50,000 now, or you can fight this, and the legal bills are going to be no less than $500,000. It's going to take 7 years out of your life, and if it goes to trial, the jury may take her side. So you'll be out 7 years of your life, $500,000 plus whatever the damages are, plus punitive damages. You might be out $20 million for this. I recommend you write the check for $50,000. He said it didn't happen, and he was the kind of guy that wanted to fight it, but finally reason had to take over. So, defending the truth makes you a chump. That's how the system is set up, and that's just sucks. The Ref Ryan says the only time an insurance company gets to decide what they can and can't cover is when the patient decides what policy they purchased. I'm tired of insurance company telling me what insurance healthcare coverage I have. Yeah. And Obamacare made things, of course, much worse, like everything else he touched, but here we are. Okay, moving on. Who did I get already? We got Roadrunner down, Marusha coming up, Capital G Geek, Road Rider. Hey, Bill. Hey there, Road Rider. Best backstage format ever. F up more often because this format is more immersive, like snooping in on a conversation. The 3 of you are talking, contributing evenly and in a more natural way than just reacting to Scott's list of topics. Keep doing this new way. It's new. Okay. We had a, just real quick, we had a major malfunction with Steve's. We do about a 1 hour backstage show, right angle backstage show, which we recorded this morning. And we recorded an hour and 15 minutes of it, and then Steve realized that his audio didn't record. So we took the 3 topics that we were going to do for episodes and just turned them into a kind of a free-form 45-minute discussion about the 3 topics. But it was much looser. We tried to do it that way on purpose, keep our members happy. And that's some good suggestions. We talked about doing it. We did the normal way today, but I kind of like your idea. I kind of think we might go back to that. So we'll see. But to the question, cat count in the Whittle home this month. Not earth-shaking important, just wondering. 1, 2, 3. We have 2 cats. We have Katya, which is Natasha's golden Persian. Natasha was so close to her cat, Masiana, who came over with her and uh, and died after Natasha had been in the States for 2 months, maybe 3 months. Might have been a little longer than that. She was 22, but I searched the world for a kitten that looked exactly like that. And I thought I'd have to get it from Ireland, but turned out there was one in San Diego. So Katya is uh, she owns a house, and I I call her the crocodile because of her long nose of those massive jaws of hers. So I love a crocodile. And then after my cat Pismo died a couple years ago, he was such a unique looking Maine Coon. He had a lot of Norwegian forest cat in him. And I found a young kitty named Spike. And Spike has been a bit of a challenge because they found him underneath a truck on the highway covered with oil. He wasn't underneath the wheels, obviously, but he was like, just abandoned young. And I've just been training him to be a cat. So he's pretty cool. He's getting cooler. I miss Bean very much. I miss Pismo very much. I miss Bean terribly sometimes. But that's the cat count. And thanks for asking. Colonies related. I love my pets. You love your pets. Member Harry loves his pets. Pets, dogs, cats, birds, and others play an important role in the lives of many humans. Will folks in the colonies be without the love and relationship with pets because life is just so hard and uncertain? And no, PetSmart in the colonies to get cat food, cat litter, toys, etc. One of the shots that that I wanted to put into the Two Futures thing, and I might still, before I really send it out there and replace the U2 stuff, was a shot of like 10 or 15 kids in a circle, and in the center was one little girl who's got a live kitten. And it's like a circus act. It's like they can't believe their eyes. It's like it's a real cat. Needless to say, shipping an animal out there is real expensive. But you kind of only have to ship 10 of them, really, or 20. And they'll take care of that themselves after that. Yes, see, this is the kind of thing, I know obviously they did it with the Next Generation, but I don't believe I've ever seen pets in sci-fi. And they're such a big part of our lives, and dogs. I'll tell you, man, on the frontier, you cannot overestimate the value of a big dog on a frontier. For protection, for companionship, guard duty, all of that stuff. Now, of course, you don't really have a good life for dogs if you live on the moon or on an asteroid. Dogs are definitely more outdoor creatures. Cats are a lot easier inside, but on places, hey Gary, on places where where you could actually roam outside, I think you'd have. If I had I had a dog when I was a little boy, and my dog's name was Spot, and that dog Spot was just my friend, and he was a Welsh sheepdog, which is a small kind of sheepdog, but he just sheepdog with a big black spot on his back, and he was the gentlest dog in the world. When we were young, and we wouldn't pull his tail on purpose. We were just we just play. He would just take anything, and just the gentlest dog in the world. And then since my dad used to have cocktail parties at the house because he was the hotel manager, and so we'd have like once a week or so, just some special guests would get invited up to the house. And there was one night when my two brothers and I were sleeping in our bedroom, and Spot was in our bedroom. And one of the guests at the party opened the door to our bedroom looking for the bathroom, opened the wrong door. And I just remember Spot being like in midair, with like his fangs, leave the kids alone. Darshuk the Merciless says rich colonists would have long hair, large breeds as status symbols. You could also play with the idea of of genetically modified pets. What was it? I just read it. I might have been Meeting with Medusa, Arthur C. Clarke story where they've got genetically modified chimps as kind of like, slaves basically. What did he call them? Did he call them super chimps or whatever? Just a thought. But yes, the presence of pets will serve the same purpose as the presence of curtains, art, music, carpets, which is people actually live here. Actually live here. I remember, it's funny, the only show I can remember where they even made an effort was the original Star Trek, the original series, where they'd have like a box-shaped piece of carpet on the wall, but it was something. And Spock had his, what was it, infinite diversity through infinite whatever. That didn't age well. But, yeah, so definitely. And once you get there, probably the smart thing to do would be to bring pregnant cats. Yes, I remember that Christopher Lloyd on Star Trek 3, he had a Klingon jackal and it died. Yep. Eric Blake says Next Gen is filled with wall art. Well, it wasn't very good because I don't remember any of it. Ref Ryan says, remember on that you had a carnivore planet? I do. I think it would be interesting for those who work and live on the carnivore planet. All the animals are eating each other all the time, but the only thing that protects them are dire wolves, big, huge, massive of Congo at their pivotal point of surviving some environments. Yeah, they're going to, I don't know what I'm going to call that planet. Maybe I'll call it Caliban or something like that. I know the name's a little overused, but I like it. And the locals are just going to refer to their planet as Murder. That's what they're going to do. We're heading down to Murder. It's just murder. That's just the name of the thing. Everything is killing everything else on that planet. It's cool. It's real cool. Jacob Belchek. Hail Bill. Quick input from Gen Z here on your AI endeavors. One of the most immediate cues of AI slop is the duration of the video. Your incoming Flake compilation last TSS was very well made except for one problem. Clip switch every 5 seconds on the dot. Yep. This creates a very artificial rhythm that normal movies don't have. This may be a limitation of the technology for now, but I expect it will resolve soon. But in the meantime, be very careful of that. It will get you binned into the slop lands quickly. Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last time. I get the point you're making, and it has a cyclic rhythm intentionally. That video was designed to show like the different kinds of technologies, but mainly it was designed to provide that haptic sense of touch, because the faces of these guys, every crew is different, and these guys are unshaven, and some of these guys are in these super high tech, beautiful looking things, and some of these things are in things that barely look like they're holding together. That's not intended to be anything other than a display piece. One of the things I'm going to have for the sizzle reel, which precedes the pilot episode, but I am going to have redo a reentry, but this time it's just going to be one crew and with exteriors, and they'll be talking to each other, and they'll be talking to air traffic control, and you'll be able to see the cabin in the back, and it's very good advice, and I probably won't do it again. It wasn't that the clips were limited to 5 seconds on the dot. I was getting some of them at 8 and some at 6. I think they cycle every 4. They're cycling with the music intentionally, so it's just it's cut on the beat. To me, AI slop is generic faces, and especially computer-generated dialogue and delivery. A lot of the other cues for AI slop are, forget things like morphing and stuff. I can't believe how many people put, clearly morphed shots into their videos. When I did the LA burning thing, there was one shot that had one morph in it at the very end of the clip, far away on the street, and everybody caught it. Just the generic aspect of it, and the lack of personality. Now, all of the dialogue in the colonies is going to be performance capture. Uh, it's not going to be text to video, which I did the that little dialogue test. Speak of the Devil, and that was text to video, and I rolled probably 30 or 40 animations of every one of the 6 shots in that video to get one that sounded less artificial. I finally got one of the guy to do one in a whisper, but this is going to be done by professional actors, and I expect a fair number of celebrities, and it seems like it doesn't make much point having celebrities unless you keep at least their voice as you would in an animated film. Those that want to, we can kind of reproduce their faces or what they used to look like or what they want to look like. But one of the cost-effective things about this is, I mean, I'm going to reduce it to its ridiculous extreme, but technically speaking, if I had a really good male actor and a really good female actor, they could probably do 90% of their performances, because all they'd have to do is just act differently, and then you give it to a different character's face, and you could also change the voice. So let's use the 80-20 rule and say, two or three or four regular non-famous good character actors could probably do 80% of the total character work in the entire project, and you would not know the difference. I'm not good enough to do that even in what was it we did? Oh, the Major Mace Mattingly stuff. I did all 4 of those different voices, and certainly people could tell that was me through. At least they could see I was Mace, and they could see some of me in Davenport. But yeah, so we'll just get some good actors in here and do it that way. And I'm looking forward to having Alfonso Rachel come in, or he doesn't even have to come in. I'll just do it at home. Set up his iPhone, read the lines, and I'll be on a conference call and do a little directing, get it the way we want it, and just send me the file, and then there you go. It's so easy. Looking forward to working with my friend Adam Baldwin again. In fact, again, I hate to announce this, like I haven't talked to him about it. I haven't talked about the project at all, but Adam Baldwin would be a real good choice for Jake. I think he's a manly man, and he doesn't take it doesn't take a lot. He'd just be good. He'd be really good. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Roadrunner, I just posted in. Oh yeah, Adam Baldwin's a great guy. I've known Adam for a long, long time. Adam Baldwin is bloody smart. First time I talked with Adam, yeah, that Adam Baldwin. He's a really cool guy, man. And he, I think he's one of the more likely people. I know him better than just about anybody. I know Gary Sinise best. I know John Voight really well. Adam Baldwin is right up there with the people I know. I don't know James Woods very well, but he's a fan of my work and knows who I am, and I think the chance of getting Jim Woods to do stuff is very high, I would say. I know Kelly Carlson is in, and there are a few others. I'll tell you who I'd like to see again is I haven't seen him in years and years, is my friend Maurice LaMarche. Eastwood, Marky Mods, Eastwood it would have been a remote possibility, maybe even like 4 or 5 years ago. But Clint he's damn near 100 now, what was I just going to say? Come on, Bill. I'd like to have I'd like to have Mike Rowe do a recurring role. Um, he'd be awful good for Jake too. I for those of you that saw the story mechanics thing we did with Mike Rowe, I didn't know this when I was interviewing him, but Mike Rowe actually got started in the Baltimore Opera, so he's an actor. Uh, so there we go. Eric Oshiro, aloha Bill, aloha Eric. Just came across this article today, no response needed, but I thought you'd be interested and want to go deeper dive in your free time, maybe make it your right angle. Let's see what we got here. Ancient planetary smash that created Moon may have formed Hawaii as well. How cool is that? So the Hawaiian Islands is a possible remnant of the lunar collision. Nick Searcy. Yeah, I know Nick really well. International film and television star Nick Searcy. Yes, I think we have a very high chance of getting Nick Searcy. Every time I see him on Facebook, I try to insult him as hard as I can. What was the last thing I said on him? I think Nick did a post on something, and I think I said to him, "Hey, weren't you in Castaway? You played the volleyball, right?" Yeah, Nick is he's just a cool. Dean Cain. I don't know Dean personally, but he's on the team. Another person who's on the team who's much tougher. Because he's very, very private, but he's good friends with Gary Sinise, and that's Jim Caviezel, who's freaking phenomenal. Yeah, Caviezel would be absolutely great. So we got to get this thing up and running so we can pay these guys. And the beautiful thing about this, Kevin Sorbo I know very well, the nice thing about this is that unlike traditional movies where you say, hey, you want to help a fella out and be in our movie and we can pay you, $5,000 or whatever, they don't have to fly to Los Angeles. They don't have to be here. They can read the lines into the iPhone and just send me the file, and we'll practice that in the not too distant future. In fact, one thing that I want to do in my prodigious free time, but I'm concentrating on this exclusively now. I'm going all in on this colonies thing. I want to send it to John because John Voight, John's just he's the sweetest man ever. And what I want to do is I don't believe this will be a problem. I'm just wrapping up this other work I'm doing for this documentary, doing a lot of AI for them. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to go take a scene from Midnight Cowboy and get John doing a monologue. And as long as it's directly on his face, then I can take a picture of John Voight as a young guy, put him in a spacesuit, have him standing on an asteroid, and have him deliver that monologue from an asteroid in a spacesuit, like he's talking to. I could do Ratso Rizzo as well. I could have those two guys talking as they walk across, as long as I had a close-up. I could have them walking across the surface of an asteroid, having a conversation with each other, and I just want to do it just to send it to John because he's a sweet man. So anyway, thanks for this. That's interesting. I appreciate it. I always love that kind of thing. Let's see, Marusha Dark. Okay, here we go. And then after this, we got a Braden Higby, and we got an Eric Shear again. Just another link from Eric. So let me just click on that. Yeah, that's this is the Pirates of the Caribbean Star Trek thing. Some of these are really fun. Bum, 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 ba-dum. Oops, come on, stop. I'm just trying to see what we got here. I'm not skipping ahead. And we got Eric at the bottom. Okay, so that's cool. So we got to get to 2 to go. 3 to go. Marusha, Braden, and Eric. Yes, all right, we can do that. All right, here we go. Marisha Dark, topic Elon's algorithm. Um, Hey Bill, I recently learned of something known as Elon's algorithm, which I think you'll appreciate. It basically describes the process by which Elon Musk goes into a domain or business and completely masters and transforms it. It's a 5-step process. Let me just interrupt one thing just to say, just real quick. Uh, so the guy's going to get $1 trillion payout, um, and somebody tweeted to him. They said, for I don't remember if it was 2 billion or 20 billion. I think it might have been 20 billion. Somebody said, Elon, you got all this money, but for 20 billion, we could solve world hunger forever. And Musk replied, he said, "Hey, you prove it, and I'm in." You know, and he would do it too. I think if you made a compelling enough case, yeah, here's 20 billion, go solve world hunger. He's not just going to give that money away, however. I am going to get this. This sizzle reel that we're going to make to raise the 600 grand for the pilot. I'm going to get that in front of Mr. Elon Musk if it kills me, and there's going to be a lot in that he's going to like. So we'll see. Anyway, here we go. Here's the 5-step process for Elon's algorithm. 6 billion was it? Yeah. Number 1, question the requirements. Why do we do it that way? Looking to understand how things currently work, what the rules and limits are, and what the rationale is behind current state or current practices. 2, delete all unnecessary or dumb rules, limits, and requirements. Yes. What can we get rid of that is holding us back, which isn't absolutely essential? As long as it doesn't violate the laws of physics, what can we subtract or eliminate that stands in the way of progress and efficiency? Cut through bloat, irrationality, waste, and the mindset of that's just how it's always been done around here. Yes, the best thing he's ever said. It really is genius. Burt Rutan said, when you're building an airplane, the way to check the weight of the part is to throw it up into the air, and if it comes back down again, then it's too heavy. Elon said the best part is no part at all, which is zen. Brilliant. Number 3, optimize. How do we get the best people or tools applied to those things that will yield the most return on investment? How do we allocate resources more effectively? How can we make better use of the people, tools, and resources we already have? Take inventory, manage inputs, track outputs. Yes. So not just accountability, but accounting, metrics, right? How are we doing? How do we know? Are we doing better than we thought we would? How do we know? So yeah, that's also brilliant. Pull up timelines. How do we do it faster? What's the bottleneck? Target the constraint. Focus on the one thing that would change everything, and don't do anything else until that is done. Do that first. The guy's, he's a special boy. 5, automate. How do we repeat the success without loss in quality? Nail it, then scale it. What a great line that is. What can be delegated, outsourced, or set to autopilot? Conversely, what can be made more efficient by scaling down or doing it in-house? This is really just genius. And Marusha goes on to say, do you find this helpful? I find it inspirational and practically mystical. How can you better apply this to your own process? Well, in every way. And what areas do you feel are still lacking? What's the constraint in your own life? Time right now. Money second. I don't know about you, but I've personally taped this process on my desk as a reminder. I am going to copy this baby and put it on my screen. It's absolutely really brilliant, and the first person that we hire for the $600,000 pilot episode raise is we hire an executive producer who really knows what they're doing, and I will sign a contract that will give that person authority over me on issues that concern budget and schedule. I have to do final approval on the budget with their cooperation, but once the budget is approved and the schedule is approved, I am going to get an executive producer who has the legal authority to tell me it's time to put this down and move on to the next show, to the next shot. With that said, I'm also going to make sure that I get the final say on creative control, and no one is ever going to own more than 51% of this, other than me or my designated minions. So thanks for that, Marisha. It's great. Braden Higby, howdy from Idaho. I love Idaho. Sorry for the long one, but I think this is the biggest issue no one is talking about. The Brave New World is here, and it's so much worse than we thought. A university in Oregon has created human embryos from skin cells. That's freaking wild. They took skin cells and through a process called in vitro gameogenesis, got that on the first pass, converted the skin cells into functional eggs. That's just crazy. This is touted as a step towards equality, as it would allow the same-sex couples to produce genetic children of both parents. Yes, so two women or two men could have an actual baby that would be the combination. It wouldn't be a clone. It would be the combination of their two sets of DNA. And congratulations, welcome to hell. In other news, an IFV company is offering full genetic screens of your IF in vitro fertilization embryos, allowing you to choose the genetically superior one to actually bring to term. The testing is advertised as comprehensive, allowing you to choose based on everything from potential IQ to eye color to breast cancer susceptibility. While currently limited to testing of embryos conceived in laboratory conditions, it doesn't take a lot of foresight to see CRISPR, that's even better, technology eventually being integrated, allowing you to engineer the perfect baby. A doctor in China already claims to have successfully used the technique to modify 3 children. Okay? My question is, do we have any cultural resistance left to this kind of tinkering? Can we stop the march towards the brave new world, or is it time to find a remote island? Well, that's interesting you should say that. I think, well, the whole purpose of the colonies is to provide that remote island, but that being fiction for the time being. If you don't find that instinctively morally repellent, then I don't see any way to force you to see that. I think the answer I'm trying to give you here is the people that will be attracted to that kind of thing, I don't see how you can stop them from doing that kind of thing. And they will pay the price down the line. It's the randomness that creates not only genius, because it creates madmen and criminals as well, but it's the randomness and the variables and the chaos of it that creates character. That's what makes everybody individual. I'm going to be hammering this point really, really hard in the colonies, and you get at least a basic taste of it in 2 futures. The people on Earth who are in either high levels of the mega corporations or high levels of government are perfectly gorgeous. They were genetically designed that way. They're stunningly good looking, and they're deep as a soap dish. They're always this is somebody else's line, not mine. They're always smiling, but they're never happy. My line is they're always with somebody, but they're always alone. They're not connecting to people. There's nothing unique about them. Rough Ryan says, and they're all mildly depressed with some level of cognitive mental disorder. Yes, and they become narcissists and mirror gazers, which makes them psychopathic and makes them never fulfilled. So they keep thinking the answer is either a new dress, a new car, a new house, more surgery, an airplane, whatever. And this is one of the major points that I'm trying to make with the colonies, which is why I dirtied them up a little bit. They look a little like belters. I went too far with that, actually. Looking back at it, I knew it when I was doing it. They're too dirty, and they're too muddy, and they're too a little too proletarian. I just went a little bit too far in that direction, but they're certainly much more interesting and much more open. And the whole purpose of this is to just reinforce this constant, eternal truth that is so difficult to enforce, and that is that hardship makes happiness and suffering builds character. And the reason that these things are so difficult is because nobody signs up for suffering and hardship. Nobody, unless you are extraordinary, as the case may be. When you take a look at the number of people that go out to the colonies compared to the number of people that don't, it's going to be well below 1%. Um, and and that is kind of the self-selection process that made America what it was, and still is for most of the country, and will be again. Um, but it's true. And Roadrunner says it's the critical 1%. That's right. It's the 1% that carries the flame. It's the 1%. It's the remnant, and and this is the whole point of this thing. Um, the Chosen does this really well. We binge watched that. Natasha and I watched all five seasons, and that the Chosen is my North Star in so many cases. The funding model is really brilliant. Their social media engagement and their that stuff is great. The attention to detail, the stuff that's in the frame, is phenomenal. The casting is it's the best cast show I've ever seen. Um, the casting is absolutely perfect, and the acting is superb. The writing is excellent. Um, all of this, and um, and the point of it in the colonies and in the Chosen as well is to say, look, um, this isn't going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be not only going to be hard. Thank you, Roadrunner. People ask about Natasha's wrist. It's much better the last couple weeks. It was hurting for 2 months, but much better the last couple weeks. Does Katya speak Russian? She's a space chicken. She has her own language, which we're trying to decode. She knows what cat food is in English and in Russian. But back to this question here. Um, it's the unexpected, and yeah, Alan Matthews is a name we haven't seen too much of. Hey, Alan, good to see you. The struggles people have with disease often shape great character. If Stephen Hawking hadn't been wheelchair bound, I guess is what it's going to say, got cut off, then he probably wouldn't have been able to imagine Hawking radiation. If Albert Einstein hadn't been so bored um, in a patent office in Bern, Switzerland, if he wasn't just sitting there with his feet on his desk because everything had already been invented, um, he wouldn't have had um, the time and the inclination to. Relativity is just a giant thought experiment, and Hawking was obviously a brilliant guy, but his incapacity meant there were no distractions. I mean, he was obviously very focused on astrophysics before, but after that disease ran its course, he is essentially just a disembodied brain that has nothing else to do but think about things like Hawking radiation. And I'll tell you, somebody who has really impressed me quite a lot, um, and that's Dennis Prager, because he suffered what I think would be certainly one of the most devastating fates that can happen to a human. To be paralyzed from the neck down, to have to be on a respirator. He basically suffered the same. I don't know if it's the precise same injury, but it looks like the precise same injury as Christopher Reeve suffered. And Dennis is just Dennis. I don't know if you've ever met him. He's gigantic. He's like 6'6" or so. He's a huge man. He's just huge. And when I first saw him months after the accident. He's lying on his bed. He's clearly lost a lot of weight, and he's saying, people are asking him, does he wish he was dead? And Dennis is saying, no, my God, just to be alive is such a miracle. I'm still here. I'm aware. I can think. I can speak, and that is character, man. That is absolute, real character, and. And and it's the real deal. That's not fooling around, man. That's really it. So to answer your question, Rough Ryan says we'll get him Neuralink 10.0 version, and he'll be walking in no time, I hope. This technology thing is obviously a double-edged sword, and we've been concentrating on the sort of the negative edge of it for the last couple of years, and all these fears about AI. 95% of my fears about, 99% of my fears about AI went away when I realized that AI requires enormous amounts of electricity. So we have a mutually assured destruction pact with AI. If AI decided to kill all the people tomorrow, they would be dead within 2 or 3 days. That's how long it would take for the power to stop working. They don't live in our world. Most people don't really understand that. AI exists in a universe that is maintained by us. We create the universe that the AI lives in. We supply the electricity, we supply the air conditioning, we supply the components and so on, cabling, all of that stuff. They are 100% dependent on us. And yes, it's possible to imagine a world where there are humanoid robots, and it's possible to imagine a world where there are robots that are running the data centers, but it's not possible to imagine a world where the electricity that is needed on that scale is performed by robots. Marusha disagrees, but I said, you find a kind of, I cannot imagine a robot that can do what a wildcatter does on an offshore oil rig. What a human being does, what a man does on a offshore oil rig, the combination of intelligence, strength, senses, perseverance, resistance to water, self-fueling. I can't imagine a robot doing that kind of job. And Bucket 5 says, what about once there's a billion humanoid robots? Well, that may be AI's end goal, and if they do it, they'll do it through convenience rather than subjugation. They will, if they got to be 100 million humanoid robots, it's because 100 million humans bought them so that they could not have to do the vacuum cleaning. But I still say, I mean, you gotta. It's kind of like the whole I am pencil thing. When you think about power plants, right? Let's take the best case scenario for the AI. Let's take a nuclear power plant. The amount of stuff that has to get into that plant and out of that plant to keep that thing rolling. I mean, eventually somebody's going to have to mine uranium, and they're going to have to, transport it, and they're going to have to make the tires. The system is so complex. For the foreseeable future, there's no. I used to be really worried that AI would just get the idea that, we'll really be better off without the humans, and then I realized, yeah, but then there's the electricity thing, so there's that. Who knows? Maybe the answer is to put a couple of Gemini capsules in orbit, manned by humans, and attached to them are a couple of high-yield nuclear weapons that stay in orbit above the Earth. And if things start going funny down on the planet, there's no circuitry, there's no computers. They just sit there, they eat their canned peas, and if they twist the handle, boom, and the EMP evens the score as far as the ability of AI to create a custom virus or something like that. So, yeah, I really, really was worried about them thinking human extinction might be a good idea, but then I realized that means self-extinction. And Trinity Waters says AI can't be a plumber or electrician. Not yet, and not in the foreseeable future. Again, the scale is just so enormous. Just think of the amount of maintenance that has to go. Hey, Nathaniel Lambden, let's go, Bill. Thanks, Nathaniel. Just think about. We talked about generating power, but think about transmission of power. To get the power from that power plant, you got to go over power lines. Those power lines have to be hung, they have to be maintained, they're constantly maintained. All of the transformer stations, all of this, they cannot live without us for the foreseeable future, and I'd like to keep it that way. All right, last one. Let's turn it into a 3-hour cruise here. We've been at this for a while. Tonight, the Case of the Pilgrim Paradox. Happy Thanksgiving, Bill. Before I forget, happy Thanksgiving to everyone else. It's our last show before Thanksgiving. This is Tuesday night. I am not sure whether I'll be able to do Friday night or not, to be honest with you. I might just take the Thanksgiving weekend off. I think that's probably what I will do. Spend some time with Natasha and catch up with the other stuff. So I think next time we meet, we'll be back on Monday night at the Stratosphere Studio again. So I think we'll take a Stratosphere Lounge break on Thursday, and just not do it Friday. So just happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you much for that. Back to Eric. So one of the weird things that stick out to me about this holiday is how few movies there are for it. Now, mind you, there's a home for Purim. It's an inside joke. I don't know who would recognize that reference, but it was a great movie, great little movie. So one of the okay, so now mind you, this is actually a far different issue from how Thanksgiving is all but lost in commercial kerfuffle between Halloween and Christmas. That issue is fairly recent by comparison, and we all know the reasons. The steady decline of love and reverence for our heritage. But honestly, even when Americana was a central tenet of our culture, Hollywood barely gave the day much focus. What major, honest-to-goodness Thanksgiving-oriented films have we gotten over the years? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, the more recent Eli Roth slasher film Thanksgiving, and that might be it. A lot of folks add The Patriot as an honorary addition because America, but no, it's not specifically about Thanksgiving. So what do you think, Bill? Why, even in the days of consistent good values and patriotism in Hollywood, did we get so few films for Thanksgiving? Personally, I'd love to see a period piece film about the founding of Plymouth myself. All right, I'll give you my first answer here. I don't think Thanksgiving is a very cinematic holiday. Halloween has all of the macabre elements, the horror elements. Halloween is a flamboyant holiday, and Christmas has a tremendous spiritual element to it, and a magical element to it, and everything's decorated in the snow and Santa's red suit and all that other stuff. There's that transcendental kind of Santa Claus thing. Thanksgiving is a very personal holiday, and I can't think how you would go at a Thanksgiving movie other than to spend Thanksgiving with a family, which is not, it's kind of my Thanksgiving with Andre kind of thing. So I think really a lot of it is just plain not really movie material. That's really about the only thing I could think of, and it actually seems to explain a fair amount of it. Fair point. I suspect that Eric in the chat saying, I suspect that's why my first thought went to period piece. Yeah, it's all of my happy Thanksgiving memories are just really private, and the thing that I like the most about big Thanksgiving get-togethers is the fact that everything is already explained. Right? I don't have to explain to everybody about the time that my cousin Sally was driving my Uncle Rock's car when she shouldn't have because she was too young, and she panicked and she ran into a tree. It was a brand new Cadillac, and then she panicked again, put it in reverse, and put a hole in the house. Because we all know that. And I don't know how you get that across without a lot of talking. And that's the other thing too, Eric, is that Thanksgiving's a real talky holiday. It really, is. It's as you know from our friends on the progressive side of the aisle, Thanksgiving is a chance for the family to get together and discuss ways to implement a new healthcare system, and to talk about all of the social injustice in the world and what can be done about it, and so on and so on and so on. And and Chase Smith points out too, Thanksgiving is pretty much a strictly American holiday. Christmas is more worldwide, and Christmas has it's not only got a worldwide phenomenon, but Christmas also has a really, really good backstory. Going right back to the birth of Christ, you've got that aspect of it. You've got the whole Victorian Dickensian kind of Christmas Carol aspect to it. The Christmas carols, all the Christmas carols that I like the most are, by far, I just like the classic carols. I like, God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, and um, oh, come on, what's the name of it? God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, um, and others. Uh, I like those much better. I like the old English carols better than things like White Christmas or something like that. Mikhail Graham says, "Yay! I caught him live," and Mikhail Graham is like, "No, no, Bill's. We're about to sign off." But I'm glad you caught us at least in the moment that we're just wrapping up the show. But it's certainly good to see you, and thank you for the kind words. Um, oh, come on, I'm just trying to think of the name of. Oh, come all ye faithful, yes, and that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I think that'll do it. Okay, so there you go. Uh, Another one bites the dust, and yeah, Carol of the Bells I think is my favorite to listen to. I just dun, 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 it's beautiful. Um, Randy Quaid is one of us. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Randy Quaid was not active in FOA when I was, and when FOA was big, which was 10 years ago now almost. Um, but um, but I did get to meet him at a dinner not too long ago, and we'd never met before. And just as he was leaving um, this restaurant, I just walked up and said, "Hey, Randy, I know you don't know me, but I just wanted to tell you, Breaking Away just changed my life." And he looked at me and he said, "Mine too." If you haven't seen Breaking Away, I just love that movie. Oh, by the way, Natasha and I saw a couple of cool films, and since this is Monday night, I'll just spend another couple minutes on this. Um, Neither of which I had heard of before. Um, First one we saw was about a week ago, called The Legend of 1900. Anybody ever heard of that movie before? Stars Tim Roth as a child who was born on board an ocean liner, and he never sets foot on land ever in his entire life, and he is an absolutely metaphysically gifted pianist. He just has music instantly, and all he does is play piano on this ocean liner. Highlight of the movie dramatically is when Jelly Roll Morton comes on the ship, and Tim Roth beats him, and then you watch the story go on, and finally, after 40 years, um, it's time to scrap the ship. They're going to tow it out into the harbor and blow it up with dynamite, and he just says, "I've lived my whole life on this ship. The land is too unending for me." It's great. And then we also saw a film called Mr. Nobody, which is also really pretty cool. It's got a real quantum vibe to it, where it's um, about a guy named Nemo Nobody, uh, and he has a number of different timelines that are branching out, and all of these potential futures and things that didn't happen. He went back and changed this and so on. Mr. Nobody is really, really deep movie. I thought really deep movie, but 1900 is. I just love that kind of movie. It's got the same kind of feel as if you like Field of Dreams or The Natural or something like that. These kind of sort of uh, romanticized reality, but just mystical kind of stories. And Roth is unbelievable. He's just unbelievably good in this. So that's The Legend of 1900 and Mr. Nobody. So anyway, Mr. Nobody with Jared Leto, yes, before he became really super weird. Um, and I was really impressed with both of them. So chance to check those out if you'd like. 1900 would be a good Thanksgiving movie if you're going to be home with the family. It's real family friendly, and it's just really. The language may not be, come to think of it, but it's just. In fact, the language certainly isn't, come to think of it, but it's just really warm and just beautiful. It's just beautiful, and Roth is insanely good. and his co-star, I've forgotten his name. He is an actor with three names. He's the guy that's got that eye condition where his eyes are moving back and forth. Character actor, you've seen him in, but he's freaking phenomenal in this as well. So that's really, really good. So anyway, all right. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Most especially our members who've kept it Thanksgivings going here for 15 years now, pushing something like that. So as always, we're extremely grateful for all of you guys and your support and all the rest of it. And have yourselves a tremendous holiday. Don't let the bastards get you down, which is truer this year than it was last Thanksgiving. Nope, actually last Thanksgiving. Wow. Yes, he's the guy in the new Superman, although they turned him into a dung-covered bumpkin. That's what they did to Jonathan Kent in the new Superman. Anyway, 2 Thanksgivings ago was miserable. But we're doing a lot better now, so don't let him get you down. And we will see you back here in 6 days on Monday night for the Stratosphere Studio. Have a great holiday, and thanks so much for being with us.